I'd like to call this November 19th, 2020 Strongsville Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell,
Here.
Mrs. Salee,
Here.
Mr. Micko,
Here?
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
and Mrs. Hausum.
Here.
All present, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain student achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And again, it goes without saying that these goals are challenged by the pandemic. Next is public comment. I normally am very lenient with public comment. We have a number of them today. And I'm also aware that we have a 10 o'clock curfew. So I may put up a high sign when you near 3 minutes, just as a reminder, and I appreciate everyone's courtesy. First is Hina Shah. And I think, have you done this before? You know the drill, name, address, and then 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Hina Shah. Address 22419 Northwood Trail, Strongsville 44149. Before I start, I have 3 requests today. But before I start the 3 requests, I would like to thank the board members, Mr. Raiba, and everybody, and all the parents, the teachers, and everybody we are all dealing with this in a very difficult situation. There are differences of opinions. They can be in the same household, but to come together and deal with those, it's a big challenge. And we are dealing with this challenge in a very graceful way. My 3 requests are, first of all, I am saying we should continue with the hybrid training, with the hybrid module of education. Second of all, what I'm proposing is we should separate the motions to keep the tenure of how long this training should continue and how the module should be. We should separate both of those so that it can be voted upon separately. And third of all, I'm talking about high school students. In case a student is quarantined, what would happen? How would they be able to take the midterm exams? That is my question, and I want to reflect upon that. That's all I want to say today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I think the midterm question will get answered before the end of our meeting. Next is Param Oswal. Close?
Yeah.
Did I say your name correctly?
That's almost exact.
Excellent.
Good evening. My name is Param Oswal, and my address is 15033 Scarlet Oak Trail, 44149, Strongsville, Ohio. I'd like to start by saying that I understand all the complexities that come with this decision that you have to make today. It is not easy to make. Still, I completely support the county's recommendation for schools to go fully remote due to the recent spike in cases. When we switched back to hybrid about 2 weeks ago, I did not expect cases to spike as much as they did. And according to the Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Health, the county has had 7,967 cases in the past 14 days, with an average of 569 new cases a day, and cases going over 700 a day multiple times in the past week. And according to Dr. Johnny Ross, a Case Western Reserve School medicine epidemiologist, if we as a community continue what we are currently doing, which includes going to school, we could top over 2,000 cases in a single day in our county alone. Although all these cases may not come from Strongsville, a lot of parents commute for work out of the city to many different places where the case numbers could be a lot higher. As I said, I fully support remote learning, but last week I never really saw that as a legitimate possibility for what we move forward with as we cut down the amount of students in our buildings. So, with the help of the high school principal, I was able to send out a survey to all teachers that worked in the building. The survey was comparing hybrid versus the all-in format and which one they preferred. We got a total of 46 responses, and 91% of teachers said that they preferred the hybrid, or not preferred, the hybrid framework was effective. And when we asked which one they preferred, 65% said that they preferred hybrid. Majority of the teachers and my peers that I asked said that they liked the balance between in-person instruction, the safety, and mainly the students said the social interaction. They said that they felt safer in large part due to the increase in social distancing. With a worldwide pandemic occurring at this very moment, our health and safety are more important than being in person at school. Although the quality of education is not at its best when students are online, it is still very doable, especially considering we students have now had experience with a completely remote structure starting this year and concluding last year. Although it may be a difficult transition, I feel that our students' and teachers' safety should come before all else. If the people in our building feel safer because of social distancing during the hybrid learning framework, they will feel the safest during remote. Thank you.
Your timing's perfect. Thank you very much. Next is Jay Oswald.
Good evening. My name is Jay Oswald, and my address is 15033 Scarlet Oak Trail. Today, you will hear a lot about the concerns and views of the student body. So, I would like to take this time to advocate for the teachers. First of all, these times have placed an undue amount of pressure upon our teachers. Having to juggle and adapt to so many different types of learning models and programs is by no means an easy task. And I don't think they are given the credit they deserve for their hard work and dedication. It's easy to forget sometimes that our teachers don't only work from 7:20 to 2:25. It's the countless hours of behind-the-scenes work that they put in that go unnoticed. And so I'd just like to say thank you to all our teachers for all they've done so far. 2 weeks ago, under the given circumstances, the board voted to return to the hybrid model. Now, 2 weeks later, things have only gotten progressively worse in terms of cases in Cuyahoga County and our school. So, in my opinion, returning to school for 5 days should be entirely out of question. As you are all probably aware, last night the Cuyahoga Board of Health sent out an email advising schools to implement the online remote learning model. Now it's just a matter between the hybrid system and this remote learning model. I still think it's important to look at the local numbers of Strongsville and neighboring cities before we decide on a type of learning model. All I ask, and what I'm sure all teachers will ask, is for consistency and continuity. Transitioning from model to model makes adapting difficult as a student, but it makes it far more difficult as a teacher, as they have to reorder what they teach and rework how they teach it. As I said, this already puts an undue amount of pressure on them. So it would do them a great favor if the decision made today was implemented for a longer period of time. With that said, I think it is of paramount importance to take the need for this continuity into consideration. So when it comes time to vote, I ask that on behalf of the students, and more so our teachers, that you all side with the model that you think will be able to persist with the rising numbers while ensuring the safety of students, teachers, and their families. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. And I'm having trouble with the first name, Yandline Shaw?
I think that's probably me. My handwriting is atrocious.
You said it.
Hi, I'm Vardhan Shah. My address is 22419 Northwood Trail, Strongsville, Ohio. I'll just get to the point. I think that the best model for implementing in the next however long we decide is the fully remote option. First of all, the Cuyahoga County Board of Health released a resolution number 2020-143, and in that resolution, the exact language that they used in reference to schools is universities and public and private K-12 schools that are currently implementing a hybrid or full in-person protocol are advised to transition to online remote learning after the Thanksgiving holiday. In addition, the World Health Organization has stated that as children generally have mild illnesses and fewer symptoms, cases sometimes go unnoticed. The Center for Disease Control has stated that children might play a role in transmission, and they have also published a continuum of risk of school-based activities. Our school falls into the medium and highest risk categories. Medium is listed as cohorting, alternating schedule, and staggered schedules are applied with some exceptions. And for highest risk, students mix freely between classes and activities. That is what happens at the high school, and I'm presuming at the middle school. All of these authorities and health authorities have recommended that we switch to a hybrid framework, and that the framework that we are using has a significant amount of risk. I don't believe that that should be ignored. In addition, looking at our local numbers, in the last 2 weeks alone, we have had 266 confirmed cases in the 44149 and the 44136 zip codes. That's a lot of cases. Listen, I advocated 2 weeks ago for a hybrid learning framework, and I said that I prefer that instructionally over all the other models. That still holds true today. I prefer hybrid over the other instructional models. However, I feel in the interest of public health and public safety that we need to go remote. Additionally, as Jay pointed out, the longevity of the remote model at this point is the only model that can sustain itself over a longer period of time. What we don't want is we don't want a situation in which we commit to a framework that has a higher risk and we are forced to backtrack. That would be disastrous to the continuity and the longevity of teachers' lessons and for the learning of the students. I believe that because remote learning is the best balance of public safety and additionally of continuity, it is the best model, and we should definitely use that for at least up until winter break. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. And our last public comment is Heather Hanstein.
Hi, my name is Heather Hanstein, 12399 Cooper's Run, Strongsville 44149. When I first began to compose these comments a few days ago, I was going to implore the board to continue to keep our students in the hybrid model as opposed to returning to the in-person, in-building learning model. A lot has changed in just a few days. First, I was going to review the district's original responsible restart plan that was put out over the summer. Then I was going to review the measures released by Cuyahoga County that we would use to determine if the district was in the position to move forward or stay in the current learning model, i.e. seeing the county positivity rates decline below 5%, or also see a sustained decline in new cases over a 1-month period. The positivity rate of Cuyahoga County was 12.5% last week, nowhere near the 5% positive rate to move forward. The conversation now has to focus on going fully remote. The district's revised restart plan said when Cuyahoga County is at level 3 red, the Board of Education will meet to make a determination as to which learning framework will be implemented based on what the COVID-19 county risk level is for Cuyahoga, Lorain, and Medina counties, as well as taking into consideration other states and local data. And yesterday, Cuyahoga County released a 21-day stay-at-home advisory that recommends that universities and public and private K-12 schools move to remote learning after the Thanksgiving holiday through December 17th. Medina County has now issued a stay-at-home order for its residents, and Lorain County is expected to do the same at the end of the week. At the last board meeting, we heard students give their account of how they felt being in the high school, or how they felt about being in the high school during the pandemic. These kids spoke their reality. A group of parents thought it was appropriate to poke fun at these kids on social media. While so many of these parents are worried and quick to point out that they're afraid their kids are being isolated while being on the hybrid or remote learning plan, they fail to realize the stress and anxiety many students have about coming into a building that is unable to properly social distance because of the sheer number of students. This just came up yesterday. My son sits across a friend from lunch at the high school. They sit socially distanced as required by SHS guidelines. A member of this friend's immediate family just tested positive for coronavirus, and now his friend is being tested because he has been exposed, and he also now feels sick. Well, guess what? My son is sick too, sick with worry and anxiety that he may come down with the virus. Laughing at students who say they are tired, anxious, and need a break is insensitive. How many of us have said we are tired and need a break during the pandemic? All of us. We are all exhausted and need a time out from the reality of what we're living in. It's not appropriate to tell these students, just go solo. Many of these kids are in AP and honors courses. Some play instruments in the band or in the orchestra. Some are special education students. It's important for them to maintain contact with the school and with their teachers. North Royalton High School is currently completely remote. While Berea and Brunswick, I'm at the end. While Berea and Brunswick have most recently been in the blended learning model, I expect that they will be changing going forward. I ask that the board vote to move to remote learning and not move forward or stay blended until Cuyahoga County shows a significant reduction in the number of new coronavirus cases. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. That concludes public comment. Next on our agenda is recognition. Dr. Ryba, do we have any recognition other than the one I'm going to hand over to Sherry?
Nope, not for me at this time.
Sherry, do you have any recognition you want to talk about?
I do. Get my glasses. I would like to recognize the Strongsville Lady Mustang soccer team, and I'm going to say their names. There was part of a great team. There was Abby Cutler, Grace Paco, sorry, Grace, Maddie Snyder, Coley Sedlowski, Shelby Salee, Taylor Dimmerly, Kayla Abstrap, Macy Felton, Reagan Kinney, Libby Machka, Megan McFadden, Kylie Jika, Libby Zacharias, Claire Kansas, Peyton Felton, Haley Hightower, Sarah Robertson, Sydney Flem, Skylar Rooks, McKenna Harden, Brent Severance, and Julie Rocky. We had their coaches, Todd Church, J.R. Muth, John Felton, Nick Heiniger, Freddie East, and their trainer, Mr. Widener. These girls deserve recognition for their hard work, their tenacity, their persistence, their discipline during these unprecedented times. It was because of their sacrifice and focus that they went to Columbus last week with a 19-0-0 record and left Division I state champions with a perfect 20-0-0 record-breaking season. The girls' soccer team and the coaches would like to thank the board and the school administrators for their support during our COVID season. Thank you.
And I will just say on behalf of the board that we're very proud of the entire team. It is a wonderful thing to have happen in our community. It's a wonderful thing for the girls on the team. And for myself, I always like to comment that their accomplishment is watched by all the younger students. And when the younger students see our seniors and our juniors do wonderful and great things, it lets them know that they can do the same. So we look forward to continued success. But congratulations, and at a future board meeting, we will recognize them more properly. Next, we'll go into executive session
Yes,
for the purpose of,
to consider the employment of a public employee.
do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
and Mr. Miko.
Yes, and we will go into executive session at 7:22, and we will return to continue our meeting. And we have exited executive session and re-entered our regular meeting at 8:43 PM. I thank everyone for their patience and courtesy. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. September 29th, Special Board of Education, October 8th, Regular Board of Education, and October 26th, Special Board of Education Executive Session meetings. All district video and audio recordings will be a permanent part of the minutes, and all of our meetings are available on our website. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum.
That's
For a second there, the echo. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries. And now treasurer's report, Mr. Anagnostou.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. I do have several items for your consideration tonight, with the first one being the semi-annual five-year forecast. Due to the interest of time, I'm not gonna go through the whole presentation, I'll just go through the assumptions and the bottom line, but if anyone wants to go through anything more specific, we can go to that specific slide. I will have the presentation on the website, tomorrow mid-morning, for the community. So just the 5-year forecast, it must be adopted and submitted to the Ohio Department of Education by November 30th. In September, I presented a budget forecast for the November forecast for fiscal year 2021, the current fiscal year that we're in. I updated the revenue and expenditure trends of how we're currently doing, while fiscal years 22 to 25 are budgeted amounts. And then the forecast must be presented again in May and submitted to Ohio Department of Education again in May. So we'll do a May update again for fiscal year 21 as we're trending closer to the end of the fiscal year, and it also sets up the budgeting portion for the upcoming fiscal year 22. Moving on to the major assumptions. First, the revenue assumption. When I presented this in September, we haven't received our fall collection for property taxes. At that time, we estimated at that time, the 3-year average of gross collection rate was 99.3. We estimated a 2.5% decrease at that time based on unknown due to COVID. Now that we actually got the dollars, the gross collection rate for calendar year 20 actually came in 99.50, which was 2 percentage points better than or 0.2 of a percentage point better than the average, and also higher than the 3.5% that we've decreased. So overall, it brought up taxes about $1 million. For calendar year 21, I still left the 2.5% decrease in the gross collection rate that we had in the September forecast, based due to the unknown for the COVID-19 pandemic. As this is continuing on, we'll see how that impacts property taxes. And then with the forecast in calendar year 22, hopefully things kind of settle down, and we'll see gross collection rates kind of increase based on the decrease from 21, and then 24 and 25 average back out to the current 3-year average. The valuations, I left those the same as the September forecast. I don't have any additional data for that. They'll be updated again in May as the assessed valuations will be released by the county for the upcoming calendar year next month. And then also we also have 2 renewal levies, the one that was renewed in 2016, and then also the new renewal levy that was passed in 2019. For the renewal levy, for the 2016 renewal levy, it'll expire in tax year 2021, which is next tax year, but collections will carry through to 2022. We have until November 22 to approve it, with the first attempt would be next November 2021. So our filing deadline would be around August 4th to file that with the county if we want to be on the ballot next November. So we'll need 2 resolutions, which we'll probably look in June to approve, to consider those resolutions. State funding, no change from the September forecast. State funding has been, for this year, it's the same reductions that they reduced from last year. A 9% reduction to our state funding from the state based on the COVID-19 pandemic. It seems like that's going to carry this year, unless there's a statewide shutdown, again, which could potentially impact that, but for the time being, it's the same. And then for next year, it's a new biennium budget. I brought back half of that 9% decrease, and then also I decreased our state funding by 5% due to the unknown with the guarantee, and the same thing with the following biennium budget. However, there's a proposal with a new funding formula that the state is proposing, and I think Sherry might touch on it. Are you going to touch on it during the legislative update? So I'll save that for you. So Sherry will give more details on the fair funding formula during the legislative update. And that could potentially change based on the current simulations. It shows Strongsville could receive up an additional $1 million, but that is just a proposal. It hasn't gone through the House or the Senate yet, so it's it's just a proposal, so I didn't take those numbers yet until they're more finalized, if they are finalized. Expenditures, fiscal year '21, we saw a nine FT staffing. We're up at 678 in the general fund, which is an increase of 9 from 20. Most of that has to do due to additional custodial hours, and also we hired additional staff for our SES Connect program, and then also for SES Connects and other remote learning opportunities. The forecast assumes all union agreements as currently defined. Healthcare remained flat for fiscal year '20, but in '21 we saw a 3% increase, and the forecast is projecting an 8% in the following out years each year. And then expenditures, I did make the following expenditure changes from the September forecast to this forecast. Salaries, I increased by $348,000 for remote 2.0, and that's for fiscal year '21 only. For SES Connects, for fiscal year '21, we're 5 months into the fiscal year, and we have a placeholder for 9 positions that are starting now, so almost half the year, so $400,000. We're kind of so the placeholder's for 3 years, depending on how long this pandemic goes. If we don't need it that long, then these expenses come out. But in fiscal year '22 would be a full year, would be $676,000. In fiscal year '23, $720. Then the forecast phases it out in fiscal year '24. Solo, the Strongsville online learning option, if students stay enrolled with that. The estimate this year was, in the general fund, $750,000, but the total estimated cost was $1.3 million, but we are utilizing $130,000 that we had in the annual budget, also $155,000 from the CARES funding, and then we also have $285,000 worth of credits for previous year seats that we still have available as part of that. And then in fiscal year 2022, the total estimated cost will be about $750,000, kind of reducing that by 50%. And then also in '23, kind of reducing it again by $500,000. Again, these are just placeholders. If we don't need it, then it's savings, and they come out of the budget. So kind of putting in placeholders just in case. PPE supplies, this was in the September forecast. We increased the operations budget by $250,000 for PPE supplies. Additional custodial costs increased the budget for 31 hours. We also increased our transfers by $100,000 to the athletic department due to lost ticket revenue. And then also, kind of due to these unprecedented times, the forecast could fluctuate based on the different learning options and all other costs that come associated with it. And then we also did receive additional grant funding that's not in the 5-year forecast, because the 5-year forecast is just the general fund. We received $400,000 for the ESSER CARES Act, which was utilized for kindergarten Chromebooks, Chromebook cases for 3 to 5 grades. We're also going to pay a portion of the solo costs, hardware and software for remote instruction and PPE equipment, coronavirus relief funding, about $285,000. Were utilized for PPE supplies, materials, equipment, elementary and middle school desks to replace tables for social distancing, and disinfection sprayers. We received a $21,205 broadband connectivity grant, which is utilized for public Wi-Fi and transportation hotspots. And the high school library applied for a library services technology CARES mini grant for $3,000, which is utilized for an online digital catalog. And then, so those are the major assumptions. Not going to go through each individual category. I'll just kind of skip to the ending summary. So there's 2 summaries. One, the way I have to present it to the Ohio Department of Education is with the renewal levies taken out of the top, but I could add them to the bottom to kind of normalize our fund balance. The way I like to present it, though, is with those, assuming those renewal levies pass, that way it kind of shows a more consistent forecast. So we finished this year with an estimated revenue of $83.6 million in the general fund, expenses $77.2, revenue over expenditures of $6.4 million, and total unencumbered cash balance of $46.2 million. How that compared to the September forecast? September forecast had a $43.9 million ending cash balance, so the cash balance increased by 2.3%. And the main differences were, one, the property taxes, and then also we received 2 BWC rebates, which totaled about $1.2 million. The first one was $242,000, and the next one that was just announced was a total of, I believe, of $5 billion across the state. Our portion of that is $900,000, a little over $900,000. So those were one-time dollars. Cumulatively throughout the forecast through 2025 compared to September, cumulatively with adding those additional expenses, the cash decreased by $1.7 million since the September forecast, through the life of the forecast. So with that, I know I kind of rushed through it, skip slides, so does anyone have any additional questions? Want me to go to a specific slide, or?
We know it's a lot of work, George, and we appreciate it. What I think I want to make sure the public always understands is we do count every penny, and we make sure that we spend it as wisely as possible. It is the taxpayers' money that is entrusted to us, and it's our responsibility to make sure it lasts as long as possible. And you have new software this year.
Correct.
Do you like the new software, or do you miss the old software?
Getting used to the new software. It's the same company.
High praise
They changed before it was a spreadsheet, now it's web-based. So it's just getting used to it with any change. So
You can continue.
Yep, with no questions, moving on to item B is the financial report for the month ending October 31st, 2020, which can be found on Exhibit B. Item C is the tax advancement. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the district participates in the Cuyahoga County Real Property Tax Advance Program. This includes requests for advances of all taxes collected in year 2021, which is in Exhibit C. What this is an annual resolution that we need to approve and send back to the county by December 15th. The county has 2 settlement dates when they distribute taxes, which is in March, and then for the spring collection, and then also in August for the fall collection. But we can pass this resolution where we can get advances prior to the settlement date, and those advances for the spring collection would be January, and then February, then the remaining balance in March. And then for the fall collection, the settlements in August, we would be able to get a July advance. This helps with cash flow. Item D, return of advances. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the return of advances per Exhibit D be approved. If you recall, at the end of the fiscal year in June, we passed a resolution to do advances from the general fund to other, specifically grant funds, to cover negative cash balances, as federal grant funds are reimbursable, meaning we have to spend them first and then apply for reimbursement. So at the end of the fiscal year, it's a timing issue, and we can't end in the fiscal year with a negative cash balance in a fund. So the general fund has to cover the deficit, and then once those dollars are received, those funds pay it back. So that's what this resolution's for, is we're paying back the general fund to close out those grants. And then items E, F, and G are all related to annual insurance premiums. Item E is for dental insurance, which can be found in Exhibit E. There is a 3% increase in the rate. Vision insurance remained flat. There's no rate increase, which can be found in Exhibit F. Exhibit G is One America Life Insurance. The rate remained the same, and also they're locking in that same rate for 2 years. Item H is a grant approval from the Strongsville Education Foundation for 2 document cameras for Kinsler Elementary 2nd grade, valued at $200. And then item I, which is the fiscal year 21 amended appropriations, which can be found in Exhibit H, and the changes are listed in the exhibit. And then I also have 2 addendum items, and each one requires a separate vote. The first one is, they're both related to direct tax payment settlement agreements. The first one is related to the Polo Club Apartments. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the property tax valuation settlement agreement between Polo Club Apartments and the Strongsville City School Board of Education be approved, whereas the agreement was reached between all parties, which provides for the dismissal of the complaints to retain the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer's valuation of the subject property tax for tax years 2018 through 2020. Polo Club Apartments LLC will make compensation payment to the school board as provided in the settlement agreement attached in Exhibit J. And just to kind of summarize what this is, so our attorney on behalf of the school district, so just to kind of, every year property tax owners, every 3 years property tax owners can file complaints that they're, to the Board of Revisions, to the County Board of Revisions, that their property taxes are overvalued, or their value's overvalued, which would decrease their property taxes. So we have our attorney who also files complaints against that to kind of mitigate any losses to the school district based on evidence that we believe that the property should be valued at a certain valuation. Also, as property owners have the chance to file complaints about their property being overvalued, we have the opportunity to file complaints about properties that we feel is undervalued. So with both of these two, our attorney, David Seed, looked for properties that he felt were undervalued, and we filed a complaint, and we reached a settlement with a property tax owner for the Polo Club Apartment, where they're currently valued at $20,869,000 on the county records. Based on all the information shared between both parties, we reached a settlement agreement of $24 million that we feel their valuation should be, and as long as we drop our complaint and leave the $20 million valuation on the county books, though in return for a settlement of $150,000 to the school district.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any further discussion? Please extend our thanks to David. We've been very pleased ever since we retained him. He does he does a very specific thing in the law, and he's very good at it, and it benefits the district. And I would share that we don't just try to find properties or whatever. These are properties that we feel are undervalued, and it is fair for us to work with the property owners to address that situation. Any other discussion? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
and Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Then item K, direct tax payment agreement, Hunter's Hollow Apartments. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the property tax valuation agreement between Hunter's Hollow Apartments and Strongsville City School District Board of Education be approved, whereas the agreement was reached between all parties, which provides for the dismissal of complaints to retain Cuyahoga County fiscal year's valuation of the subject property for tax year 2018 through 2020. Hunter's Hollow Apartments will make compensation payments to the school board as provided in the settlement agreement attached in Exhibit K. Same premise, the settlement with this one, based on the increase of valuation, would be approximately $195,000 to the school district.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Again, thanks to David.
Yep.
Please take the roll.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
And with that, Mr. Miko, if there's no further questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions for George? Dr. Ryba, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. First thing we want to talk about under the restart plan is our learning framework for November 30th and beyond.
I will at least get the conversation started. Since it goes without saying, we've been discussing this and all the factors involved for many weeks now. I will share with the public that Lorain County is red with high incidence. Their cases per 100,000 is 554.17. And, wrong sheet. Medina County is 598.62 per 100,000. And we do have a county that is purple, and that would be Franklin County. Their one metric of the cases is 553 per 100,000. And Cuyahoga County is now 645 cases per 100,000. Cases over the past 2 weeks was 7,967. If it doesn't give everyone some level of pause, I think it should, because it certainly has given the board and the administration a level of pause to consider what to do after Thanksgiving. But I'm only speaking for myself, one of the things I've always focused on is trying to make sure we understand what's going on within our school district and our individual schools, our individual classrooms, because it's important to know all the other data, but what's happening in the schools is also very important. And I've said before that at a certain level, just pragmatic decisions have to be made, regardless of the other factors involved. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ryba so he can give us a report and a flavor on what's happening in the schools themselves as a whole and individually.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. Well, since last time the board made the decision to be in, all in for pre-K to 5 and blended at the secondary level, we've done a tremendous amount of work, and we've got a lot of positive feedback in terms of the work that we've done. And I want to commend, Bill and Jessica are here, principals from both of those buildings, as well as our teachers and staff and everybody for pulling together. And really in a short period of time, making huge gains. And that's to be celebrated. It's not easy. You're systematically changing how you teach and how you interact. And after meeting with some of our teacher leaders at both buildings, I just want to share my pride for what they've done and continue to do to make sure whatever learning framework that we're in, that it's going to be the best it possibly can be. As we take a look at the data over the last 2 weeks in terms of prevalence and spread within the district, we understand, the Board of Health, our students mentioned the Board of Health's advisory statement. We understand the numbers that are going around us in our city, in the county, in the region, and they're very concerning. The good news for us is we've still continued to see that our procedures and protocols have worked to mitigate spread as much as possible. We implemented, the board voted to implement blended learning a few weeks ago to try and get those quarantine numbers down. And it's going to take a little bit. There's a little bit of a lag, but we're starting to see those come down. We had a student that needed to be isolated at the high school, and we had 2 direct contacts. In a typical, that would be 8 to 10, to sometimes we had 20, 25 direct contacts. So that plan has worked, and we continue to believe that the model that we're operating in is safe for our students and safe for our staff. But what we're facing now is another challenge. And that challenge is adequately staffing our buildings to provide all-in and blended learning. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with the board is some metrics that we've been looking at in terms of our staff absences. So what I want to show you is some graphs that represent the average absent rate for staff during the identified week. So when we take a look at this, we're looking at percentage of staff in the building. So this is teachers and support staff, because we all play critical roles in the work of educating students. And these are absences related to quarantine, isolation, sick leave, anything that is in that vein. It's not personal leave, it's not vacation leave, professional leave, things of that nature. So I know they get the little group together, but our current metric says that when we average 20%, that we would close that building down. It's concerning that we have, these are high levels. They're not right at that 20% mark, but you can see for the week of November 16th, as of today, the average absent rate at Chapman is 16% of our staff is absent every day throughout the week. If you look at the data, we had a couple days that were 19%. We had, I think today was 11%, which drove that average down. But when you take a look at our elementary schools and you look at we have, the majority of them are from 8 to 16% absence rate. And then you take a look at the fact that our substitute pool, if you listen to any school districts or superintendents, they talk about we don't have substitutes. Everybody needs the substitutes. We're all working for them. We have so many folks that are out for the year that we're hiring them permanently, and our substitute pool is not where it needs to be. And then you add upon that increased absent rate, it becomes an insurmountable level to keep up with. You take a look at this breaks down, that the first one was preschool and elementary. This is middle school, high school, and administrative office. It's not just this building here, it's district staff. So you take a look at that. Middle school is averaging 14% absent rate per day. High school is at 10%. And so, again, 14% of 100 and some employees, those numbers are significant. So the other thing we look at is, okay, that's all of our employees. Let's look at teacher fill rates. So fill rates mean when a teacher is out, that we're able to get somebody to take their place and be a substitute. So again, this is the percentage for absent teachers during the identified week and the fill rate. So what this says, I'll start with the preschool, right, because they're our shining star right now. This is a good thing, that 100%, whenever a teacher is absent at the preschool, at least this week, we've been able to fill that 100%. Let's take a look at the opposite end, which is Chapman Elementary School, which if we go back, bear with me, Chapman has 16% of its staff that's out. When we take a look at the teachers, on average, we are able to get a substitute 31% of those absences. So if you just do the easy math, for every 3 teachers that are out, we're only able to get 1 sub. How do you continue on a premier educational experience for students when you don't get a sub? What do we have to do as a school district? We have to go to the art teacher and the 4th grade teacher and say, hey, can you cover this class for this hour? And can you cover this class for this hour? Or you know what, we've got teachers that are quarantined that are teleworking and streaming into the classroom, and we need a sub for that. And we're gonna say to our cafeteria monitor, hey, would you please help us out? And instead of monitoring the playground and cafeteria, come in and monitor here. And so what's happening is you take a look at the elementary teacher's day. They have students in their classroom for bus duty when they get there. The kids are eating lunch in their classroom. The encore classes are predominantly in their classroom. They're watching kids at the end of the day. And then we say to them, because we're not able to fill teachers, during your planning time where we want you to work and develop and get better at your craft and the outcome we're trying for our students, we need you to cover this class. So A, we're struggling to fill the vacancies within our district with substitutes, and B, we're relying so much on our internal staff to fill the void that we're coming to a point that it's difficult to continue on in both metrics. The teacher fill rate, this is a little different than the data I share with the board. I was able to go through some different reports and factor out some of the ones that were there. So, you take a look at the middle school and high school, floating around a 40% fill rate, and Jessica and Bill can share experiences of that, of the challenges that poses. At the middle school and high school, the system works a little better because teachers teach on a period basis and you can help out. But one of the things, when you take a look at this fill rate, here's things that we have to do to make things work. Our principals are subbing in classrooms. Fine, we all need to pitch in, we need to do our job and help support. But we have our English language teachers are pitching into sub-classrooms. Our gifted service teachers are pitching into sub-classrooms. Our Title I teachers are pitching in to help out where they can. And this is taxing the system that we have to support all learners and make sure they're getting what they need in the classroom. The last thing I want to do is I wanted to take a look at the middle school and high school and take a little bit more depth and look at what we call period coverage. So again, these are the teachers that do not have a sub assigned where they need period coverage. So what this is saying at the middle school, I just picked a week in October to give you a starting point. So in October, Jessica at the middle school, on an average day, the average day on the week of October 5th, she had 2 teachers that didn't have a sub, that she had to go and work and get period coverage for. So if you take a look, it's not perfect math, right? Because some teachers, I used a teacher was absent for 3 hours or more, I believe I used, that I put them in this chart. If they were just gone for an hour, I didn't put them in here. So if we take a look on average, if we have 2 teachers that are not filled, that's 5 classes per teacher, 10 classes where we need to find another teacher, 10 different teachers to fill in, and that's 10 experiences the teachers the students are getting an experience that's as best as we possibly can get, but not the quality of their typical teacher. This current week up to today, Jessica is averaging 12 and a half teachers, let's round it up to 13 teachers that are not covered during the school day. So this is a combination of teachers that are teleworking, and we don't have somebody to be in the classroom to supervise students, as well as teachers that are just out for a other reason. And so if you look at the breakdown, it's about half. It's about half teleworking, half that we just don't have a sub for. If you look at the high school, the numbers are a little bit better, but you could see again from October 5th, we averaged a little over 1 teacher that wasn't filled a day, to now we've, 4 times that, 3 to 4 times that. We're up to, an average of 4 to 5 teachers that aren't filled each day. So as you take a look at all of that, what I'm looking at is how can we sustain, how can we move forward, what's the best learning framework where we can really take into account the substitute and the staffing levels that we have available, as well as what we're asking all of our adults to do in terms of pitching in, helping out, supporting. I watched the governor's press conference today, and one of the medical professionals I think she was a nurse, she was talking about that endurance isn't infinite. There becomes a point where you push, you do as much as you can, but you hit a wall. I'm sharing with the board that we're hitting a wall. We're hitting a wall with availability of substitute teachers. Our substitutes that we rely on, even in the thin pool, we're now having less substitutes because they are quarantined, they are isolated, not from the school district typically, but from outside of the school district. So that's why, because of the lack of available staffing that we have, and the challenges that's posing on our internal staff to make things work and to provide the educational experiences we want for our kids, I would recommend to the board that from November 30th, so the Monday after Thanksgiving break through winter break, December 17th would be the last student day, that we move to remote learning for the entire district. And then we reevaluate that at a time before we come back from winter break on January 4th to determine how we would move forward. So that's my recommendation for the board's consideration as you determine the next steps.
One of the things that I asked, so I hope I'm not putting anyone on the spot, but I was going to ask Mr. Winkler and Mrs. William to just share, well, since they're in the audience, if you don't mind sharing with us some of the challenges you're having in the district. And you can both draw the short straw to go first.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I first want to say, like George said, it's any new thing that we try is always going to pose setbacks or challenges. And I think our staff has done a really great job being resilient among the challenges. I would echo what Dr. Ryba said. One of the things that we've attempted to do in the last 2 weeks at the middle school was to progress our blended learning format. And the reason we wanted to progress it was because in our all-in format, we felt a momentum with curriculum. We felt, well, this is great. Our students are here. We're moving with the curriculum. We get 5 days of instruction. And we obviously want students to be safe, and we supported that blended learning format. But we didn't want to lose the momentum. And we wanted to take what we learned in the previous blended format, transform it, and take what we've learned and by little take little steps to provide more for our students. I couldn't speak any more prouder words from my staff of how much they have done in 2 weeks and how proud I am of them, of their hard work. They've created a classroom for students at home and in the building simultaneously. They've transformed their learning platforms without hesitation, we've been providing them professional developments to help them be successful. I truly feel like what we've done in the last 2 weeks, we have a lot of great things happening that I hope continue to progress, and we see it progress further for future days and future time in Strongsville. The resources teachers are using, the ability to reach students in and out of the classroom at the same time, and giving students the opportunity to connect to curriculum, to the staff and to the teachers and their peers are remarkable. I think our teachers have done a wonderful job. The challenge, though, is currently, going back to what Dr. Ryba said, was our teachers do not want to produce a product that isn't their best. We strive very hard, as Dr. Ryba has mentioned, to create a premier education. So anytime we're transitioning into a new framework, it's a slight setback to what they are attempting to produce. And one of the challenges we're finding is when teachers are teleworking, that's a very quick change to their curriculum, and we're not giving students the best education that they're hoping for when you have a teacher at home and you have students in the classroom. They're doing an amazing job. They're producing wonderful work. I'm impressed. I don't even know if I could do it myself. I worry, though, that in this hybrid model where we're pushing forward really great curriculum, that how effective is our curriculum going to be if the classroom teacher, if trends continue and I'm missing staff? I am worried that not only is it going to be taxing on shifting the curriculum, but not having the available bodies in the classroom to assist that curriculum, and then also how is that curriculum going to be? Is it going to be premier with majority of my teachers at home and students in the building? Now, with that being said, though, in the remote platform, the transitions we made in the last 2 weeks alone, I've seen Jamboards, Screencastifys, peer decks, sharing of all the different technologies in Google breakout rooms, things that I see our teachers using in a remote setting to transform our previous remote setting. I'm encouraged that no matter what situation we're in, our staff is going to be effective and produce high-quality education. I do see consistency being helpful so that our teachers can be effective and students can have an effective education too. And so the setback for me right now is to echo more or less, if I don't have staff to staff my rooms or if they are out of the building, I do question what we're trying to attempt in the blended currently. That is one of our setbacks. And the second setback is, is taking teachers out of their time to cover these classes has been a challenge. We want them to utilize that time, and we respect their time, and time is a necessity so that they can improve these practices. And I do see a lot of our teachers going above and beyond to help with that coverage, because we are a team and we are helping each other. But there is a time where it becomes a lot, and it has been a little tolling the last weeks. I'm missing guidance counselors and some administrative staff, and it's been a little bit hard, but we've been resilient and everyone's been pitching in, and we've done a wonderful job in this framework. But it has been hard, and I do wonder how it's going to look in the next few weeks if we progress at this rate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. So, I don't want to say a lot of the same stuff that Jessica said. I do think in the last 2 weeks, the teachers at the high school have done an amazing job of being flexible. And if you come to any of my staff meetings, I use the word flexible about 25 times a staff meeting, both from me, from them. For me personally, and I think most of the teachers that I've talked to echo this, we want students there 5 days a week. That's what we all want, obviously. And I think we're at a spot, though, where when a percentage of your class is being taught by a period sub, or you're live streaming from home, where there is a loss of quality. And, I'll use, Honors Algebra 2 Trig. I was in Honors Algebra 2 Trig just the other day, watching Ms. Petrus teach, and I left going, oh my goodness, I don't know how these kids keep up, because the content was moving at a pace, and there's so much content to cover that if a class teacher like that is not there, even with a sub, and let's be honest, we all know that most subs are not high quality Algebra 2 Trig. If I had to sub for Algebra 2 Trig, those kids would be in trouble. So with that being said, we're getting to a point where
My big concern is, number one, that content is not being taught, whether it's remote, whether it's live, if it's 5 days, if there's not a qualified person to continue with that curriculum, the kids are getting too many breaks in instruction. And then I also think, I think Dr. Ryba said it really well. This is a marathon, and your endurance has a limit. And I do think that we are at that limit for some of our staff in terms of being able to keep up with their content, filling in for others. I'm extraordinarily proud. The last 2 weeks, the staff, we're not at the same spot we were at. If we'd had this conversation a month ago, it would have been a different conversation. We're close to a point, and I'm not speaking in absolutes, we're close to a point in a large section of the high school where the mode of learning doesn't matter anymore. They will get a good lesson in most classrooms, whether it's remote or live. And I've been doing my observations this week of the ELA department, and my formal observations, 48 minutes for 7, 8, I think I did 7 or 8 ELA teachers this week. And I'm proud to say, just this is anecdotal, 100% of those ELA teachers had a lesson plan that involved kids in a classroom working with kids at home through the computer. Discussions, Google breakouts, all kinds of cool stuff that when I first got here was not happening. So my opinion is whatever mode we pick, I couldn't ask for more than what Dr. Ryba said, that it should go until January. Because I think the biggest hurdle to being successful is that we consistently change. And I think we're at a point now where to maintain the stamina of our staff, I want to go back tomorrow and go, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do it really well until January, whatever. Because I think that's the big hurdle. They feel, real or perceived, when we pivot and change modes, it's a whole new plan for them. It's a whole new preparation for how they're going to approach. Because if you've not prepared Google breakout sessions online, it's not easy. It takes time. And as someone who's trying to create them for like my staff meetings, it takes time for them to do that. So the biggest hurdle I would say is just consistency. And I think whatever you guys decide for us to do, I think we're going to do it well. One way or another, we'll get there. So that's where we're at the high school. And I do think that the flexibility and the ability of our high school teachers and their capacity has, in 4 months, has increased 4 years. If that, again, that's just my opinion.
How are the kids?
Excuse me?
How were the kids?
Well, I tell you, the best part about working in a high school is you get to be around high school kids. They're very positive. The kids, I think kids, and living with, I get 3 teenagers in my house, they're way more resilient than us old people. There's no doubt about it. But I definitely think that depending on the content, this is another, and I don't want to take up too much more time because I know we're getting late here. But another hurdle for the high school is the content area. How we teach depends on the content area. We had this discussion in the math department. You can live stream pre-calculus every day. Those kids in pre-calculus, they're going to learn either way, honestly, any mode. Well, you have a group of kids who are taking Algebra 1, and you're doing a learning module. They may not be able to sit for 48 minutes. They're going to turn the computer off sometimes. So what I've asked, and this is one of the differences between me and Jessica's schools, some of our lessons, teachers aren't just creating, I don't want them to flick on the screen and lecture for 48 minutes. Kids aren't going to listen to that. What we're asking them to do is create outstanding digital content. And what I mean by that is maybe that's a 15-minute lesson with a YouTube video or a how-to video and an assignment that makes you dig deeper into it. I'm that type of learner. When I take a class, I like to go back, and I'm taking a class now that I don't like. So I keep going back on the YouTube and rechecking how to do it. And that's what we're asking our teachers to do, which I think they can do hybrid. I think they can do it remote. I just think they need to know which one so that they can actually, I'd like to see a 5-week plan from the teachers that goes all the way into the new year. So, but students are amazing. Kids are positive, kids are resilient, and I think that they'll adapt to whatever we do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Ryba, one more question from me, and then any other conversation, and then we'll wrap it up. So, hindsight's 2020. The high school and the middle school has gone through the different frameworks, and love it or hate it, they've had the experience, and the elementaries haven't had that. What challenges are we going to have to face, and what do we have to prepare ourselves for if we do follow your recommendation?
In terms of following my recommendation, I'm confident that although the elementary level has not gone through all three, they have gone through remote. They've had that experience. We received a lot of positive feedback about that experience in the fall. They built those connections with our students now, which is a huge difference that, hey, log on and nice to meet you. But they've built those connections. They know where the students are at academically. They know where their gaps are, where they can continue to intervene. And as I think Bill and Jessica said, their knowledge of tech and how to use tech in a way that's going to engage students digitally has insurmountably increased. If the board moves forward with this recommendation, I know Bill and Jessica and I have had some informal conversations about updating the schedule. Updating what it would look like at the high school and middle school level. I've had some conversations with the elementary principals as well as to look at what we've learned and how that would evolve. So those are things that I think we can quickly, small tweaks and enhancements can be quickly shared. And then it gives parents and our staff a week to prepare, a week to get going. And I want to echo what both Bill and Jessica said. I think we've demonstrated that whenever we have the challenge of switching to a learning framework, our folks rise to the occasion. It's not 100% perfect. There's a learning curve with everything, but I would say the majority, I've had some of the most staunch folks that were against hybrid reach out and say what a difference it is, and I've come around to hybrid. I'm not saying, Bill said it and I want to echo it. I want the kids to be in here. I've been struggling all day to find a way that we could keep going with what we have in place now, because I think it's working. But I can't come to a rational and logical decision of how I'm not just forcing it because I want to see it work. And then the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, I've got to tell parents, hey, 2 days from now, we've got to close down because we just don't have the subs available. I think this is the most prudent and pragmatic move to move forward. Gives us the time, and I have no doubt that, we're not going to rename anything anymore, but, Remote 2.0 will get even better as we move forward because of the experiences our teachers had. And then, Bill, Jessica, our elementary principals and preschool principal will then have the time to coordinate and communicate. Here's what the schedule is going to look like. Here's what Remote 2.0 in the winter is going to look like, and we can prep and be ready to go.
Cameron, if we go with this recommendation, can you talk about just all the learning platforms, how they'll be affected or not affected, between SCS Connects, Solo? I'm probably missing one. And obviously Solo will not be affected, but I guess SCS Connects particularly, because they're in a particular learning format right now, how that changes or does not change.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're trying to get to as we've gone through this learning is that as the learning framework spin and where the kids are spin, that we have a system of education that works in all of those. So for our adults, it's not relearning or having that feeling, as our principals shared, that every time we switch, it's a new thing. But specifically, for SES Connects, which we just started this week and is going extremely well, they will attend Remote 2.0 with their virtual class as is intact right now. So if I'm in second grade SES Connects and I'm in the virtual only classroom, I will go through Remote 2.0 just like any other second grader with the same schedule, and I will have my SES Connects teacher facilitating that. Solo 2.0 will stay with their same teacher. We've given them the option, hey, if you want to join the Google Classroom and just log on to be a part of it and listen, you can. But the grading, the work, the curriculum all comes from your Solo 2.0 teacher to have that continuity. At the Lincoln Learning, Edmentum, Edgenuity, this will not impact them at all. They're going to continue on in the same pathway they have been.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ryba, do we have enough Chromebooks now? And forgive me if this has been addressed.
No, that's okay.
Do we have enough Chromebooks to cover, especially our elementary kids? I know that there was an issue a while ago.
Yeah, so we are, Dave and our principals worked together a few weeks ago when we were red with a star and had the possibility of going to purple. We took a look at first and second grade. So kindergarten, third through 12th is all 1-to-1. They just need to, if the recommendation moves forward, On Tuesday, the 24th, they will take their devices home and have those to keep. We already did a survey of our first and second grade parents to say how many need a device. We have enough devices to support the students that need it. And so, again, Dave and his team already had a plan ready a few weeks ago. I talked to him today just to verify. He confirmed that he's ready to go. They just need Monday to get everything distributed. Kids will have them on Tuesday to take home. So there will be no students that need a device that will not get one.
And what about the hotspots that we talked about? Seems like a long time ago. Are those ready to go for anybody that might not have Wi-Fi at home?
Dave, you want to, I know you updated us on this the other day. You can come up and share where we're at with the hotspots. No, that's okay.
Our shipment of hotspots did come in last week. We were in the process of putting them on. You have to turn them on individually, put them in the management council. We had a slight issue with the filtering to be SIPA compliant. We are currently working with AT&T to make sure that all of our units will have that when they go out. Because not only do our students have the securely when they're off campus, these will also have another layer of filtering as well. So the goal was to have those hopefully by the beginning of next week in preparation for anything that could have them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? So in the interest of time and efficiency, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt Dr. Ryba's recommendation and that we go fully remote district-wide for the period after Thanksgiving holiday until the beginning of the winter. Do we call it winter holiday now? I don't have the dates in my head. What are the
November
dates?
30th to December 17th.
So from November 30th to December 17th. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Mrs. Hausum by a hair. To restate it again, the motion by myself, the second by Mrs. Hausum to go remote 2.0, fully remote, however we're going to say that, from November 30th to December 16th.
17th.
17th. I tried.
It was close.
Any discussion? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes. Oh, and the motion carries. I will share for myself, we are being pragmatic. I share the concern to have our students in school 5 days a week. Again, we've said as long as we can do it safely and pragmatically, and we're at a point where it's just very difficult. So I will share that for my own, so that the people understand that. I don't want to hog the conversation. If anybody else has any comments, please share them. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Dr. Ryba.
Few more updates. I will be quick, as quick as I can be. But one of the, come on! Vardon, after all we've been through, you're going to leave. When my turn comes. Thank you for being here.
Dr. Ryba.
Yes.
Dr. Ryba, I think our students are smart.
That's right. Thank you. So obviously, we prepared this presentation prior to all that's happened in the recent days, but I did want to share that as we go through this, we do have a shared outcome, and our shared outcome we're working towards is that no matter that we're going to provide a premier educational pathway for our students, and the key aspect is no matter where they're located, right? And so the focus of what I want to talk today, I've talked a lot about the elementary level, but I want to talk today, this is pre-K to 12, but focused on the secondary level, and making sure that we have that premier educational pathway And we also make sure that staff and teachers can strategically focus their efforts on high-quality instruction and build those strong relationships, no matter where the students are at or no matter the learning framework that we're in. And so this is kind of the visual that we created, or I created to do that, is to say, in the center is that teacher with that system of high-quality education. And as we move to in-person or blended or complete virtual, for our virtual learners or remote, that system works. What Bill and Jessica started to describe of how we're engaging students both at home and in school, and whether we're using high-quality digital content or live streaming, that will work and that benefits kids if we're all in, if we're blended, or if we're remote. And so that moves us away trying to reinvent the wheel every time that this wheel spins. So what we wanted to start and talk about is blended learning. Jessica and Bill, we're going to be here to talk about that. I think you did a great job of sharing some of the insights and the successes that we had. When we return to blended learning, maybe we'll keep you out here at 10 o'clock another night. You can come back and share some of the improvements that are there. But I think they did a good job of giving a highlight of what's going on at the building level. Anything else you would like to add? You guys good? Okay. All right, so what I want to focus on is virtual learning. We spent a lot of time, K-5 SES Connects. We talked about how that's going to work. That's been implemented. I want to compliment Dave and Aaron and Jenny for all of their work getting that up and going. Dave has some really cool tech that was implemented in most of the classrooms today. But I think tomorrow those will be wrapped up. But a way for our virtual learners and our in-person learners to see each other and interact. And Aaron and Katie Hawk and their work, they had a meeting this morning to talk about, what do you call it, glows and grows. And so they'll be sending out a newsletter. So things that we want to celebrate and things that we need to improve upon and work on as we go through this new learning environment. So I believe we've got a communication going out to our families tomorrow. But week one, couldn't be happier with where we're at. And again, what we thought was going to happen is being seen in practice. But now let's take a look at virtual learning 6 to 12. Right now, our students in grades 6 to 12, the only option that they have is to attend solo, to attend an asynchronous program called Edmentum or Edgenuity, or we have Apex too for a few different classes. But we wanted to take a look and say, okay, that program worked. If we take a look back, we had a program for about 6 years. And it worked for students that just, a large high school, large middle school wasn't for them. Maybe they had some health issues that they needed the flexibility to have a schooling in an asynchronous fashion. Well, we now have about 150 some students at the secondary level. I would say about 2/3 of them, they're not looking for that completely asynchronous option. They want to be a part of Strongsville City Schools. They want to be a part of their teachers' classrooms, and they want to be a part of our curriculum and our course offerings, but we don't have that option currently for them. We've kind of bridged that to say, hey, if you're in an AP honors or select performance group, we can give you that option, but we haven't broadened that out to our entire course catalog. And when we talked to our parents in the focus group, that's what we heard from them. We want that connection, that same connection we talked about with K-5. We want that connection, we want that curriculum, and so we are going to expand SES Connects, what is K-5 to 6 to 12 as well. Now, it's not going to be the same structure. There's just too many courses, right? You take a look at what we offer course-wise, curricularly at the elementary level versus the middle school and high school. It's completely different. So it's not about hiring more staff and having, a virtual and a live classroom together, but it is on the same framework of how do we build a connection between our virtual and in-person classrooms into one high-quality learning community, and how do we bridge and take what we've already done with blended learning and the successes we've had there and expand upon that for all kids versus the kids that have selected to stay in person. So let's move this concept to practice. So what we are saying is that students, and I'll go through the pathways and explain. So if you're a virtual learner right now, you will have the opportunity to continue in Edgenuity or Edmentum for the second semester. So if you're one of those families that says, I don't want to deal with the ups and downs, I just want to I like the asynchronous, I like the flexibility, you're going to have the option to continue to do that. If you're an in-person learner and you want that option and you didn't take us up on it for the first semester, Edmentum, we are still able to enroll students in Edmentum. That's an option for you as well. So that's one pathway for our current students. The second pathway is for both current virtual students or in-person learners. They will have the opportunity to enroll in SES Connects for the next semester. So our current virtual program at the high school and middle school, they're semester-based. So no matter what they're in through December 17th. But if they want to enroll in SES Connects, they can do that for the second semester. They will have a middle school or high school student schedule. So most of these students were enrolled before they went to solo. They had a schedule built up. It may not be the same exact teacher, but we'll be able to offer the courses that you wanted. And you'll be given a high school schedule, a middle school schedule, periods 1 through 8, 1 through 9, and you will follow it like any other student. You'll be assigned to SES classes and SES teachers. So for example, just because this is the example I used earlier this week, if I am an 8th grader and I am in science, and maybe I was on the team that had Miss Britton as my science teacher, when I come back, there's a possibility that I will have Miss Britton again as my science teacher, even though I'm at home and she's at school. From a teacher's perspective, because of the enrollment and the kids in the solo program, I may now only have 20 kids, but my original roster was 25. Well, they'll go back to 25, and they'll just have 20 kids in class and 5 learners at home. And so they're going to receive the same high-quality instruction at home in the same manner and with the same procedures that students are receiving it in blended learning. So the idea is let's expand this to all of our kids versus just the kids that are in person. The final pathway is both virtual and in-person learners. They'll have the opportunity to possibly enroll in a combination of SES Connects and Edgenuity or Mentum. What Bill and Jessica are going through is they're going through their course catalog and determining there's some classes that just cannot be replicated in a virtual format. And so we will say, here are the classes that are available in SES Connects. And if there's another elective that you want, you can still go into Edgenuity or Edmentum if you're new and take those elective courses or other courses that may not translate well in a 5-day-a-week virtual framework. So those are the options and the 3 pathways for students. You know, the benefits for kids, again, utilizing our curriculum, our teachers, they're going to get that increased live instruction. You know, as we talk about going to remote 2.0, they're going to have that same experience, you know, at home, getting that high quality content, timely feedback, discussion engagement, things that we heard from our families that they were wanting. And as we talked about earlier, consistency in the learning environment and expectations is critical. And that will provide that for our students. And when we talk about consistency, a lot of our students, they're going to come back to school at some point, whenever they feel it's safe for their health or for their family's health. And so if we're able to have them following with our teachers, our curriculum, we can ensure that the gaps are not there when they come back. We don't believe, you know, the Edgenuity and Edmentum and Apex, they're rigorous programs. But the support that we're going to be able to give, it can't be replicated by an asynchronous program. So what does this look like in terms of the timeline of implementation? Shared the overview tonight. On Monday, I'll share an overview of the program with parents, and I'll share an enrollment survey, just like we did with K-5. On Monday the 30th, I'll have a community conversation with our families that are interested in learning more, asking questions, having a dialogue like we've typically done. Wednesday the 2nd, the parent enrollment survey will be completed by 8 a.m. And then we will use that window to finalize student schedules or enrollment in our asynchronous programs. And just like we've done with our K-5 SES Connects, December 18th is the deadline to withdraw. If we don't receive your withdrawal by that time, you will be in that program for the second semester. And then this will start January 4th for our students. So that is the overview. That is the timeline. Any questions or clarifications that I can share with the board at this time?
Hearing none, congratulations. I like how this is growing and how it's giving parents and students flexibility and options.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. I do want to bring up Mr. Wingler again to talk about midterms. He's speaking for both buildings, but we have Algebra 1 and Geometry at the middle school. So this pathway would apply at all high school accredited courses. So, Bill?
So this year, I don't think it's a good idea for us to have midterms. The feedback I've gotten from teachers and parents, it's pretty much in sync based on the fact that the curriculum has been up and down in terms of what's typically on a midterm. based on the fact that some kids are struggling a little bit this year, just like some adults are because of the situation. We feel like a midterm with 20% of your grade will be punitive. What I'm encouraging my teachers to do, and Jessica and I have talked about doing this with both schools, I'm encouraging to do project-based midterms wherever possible, except that they are just they're a grade for a second quarter test. I feel like the project-based will allow kids to work online with kids live and at home. Now it'll be, if it's all remote, they'll be working, it'll be much easier than a paper pencil exam. And the truth is, I want to throw as many kids a lifeline as I can. I want students to not receive poor grades during what is obviously the toughest time to be a student. So for all of the high school and middle school courses that it's relevant, no midterms, and for semester courses, no final exams that have a 20% ranking. We'd like to do 50%, 50% for the 2 quarters for their summative grade.
And so, Bill, how does this impact the traditional exam week?
So instead of an exam schedule where where typically you'll have an exam week where there's like 90-minute blocks, we would have a regular schedule. And that's the other piece of this is we've lost a lot of instructional days when you add it all up. Rather than have a midterm where if a teacher opts to not give a midterm, that's 90 minutes of time that is not being utilized. Teachers will have normal classes during those days so that we can try to maintain as many full educational days as possible this year.
I think we should discuss it much more extensively because obviously I'm sure everyone's very pleased. I'm being sarcastic. Anything to increase the opportunity for our students to be in a teaching, learning environment, I think is a good thing right now.
I haven't found the student yet who has come to my office and said, I really want to have midterms. This was Wingler approved at home.
Send that person to the nurse.
That's right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, guys.
That concludes my discussion item, and I'm ready to move on to the department reports if you're ready. So for business services, we do have a renewal agreement for electric energy. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that we enter into an electric energy sales agreement between the district and Power for Schools endorsed electrical supplier for the period of October 1st, 2020 through the end of the billing cycle, January 2024. This agreement is to purchase retail electric energy services through a program in partnership with the Ohio School Counselors, funding from the general fund and Exhibit I. So basically, we are purchasing electric at a cheaper rate through Ohio Schools Council.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Anagnostou.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Next, we have following gifts. That is a revision of the previously listed in March 12, 2020 agenda. This is the one from the Strongsville football backers. They will donate $15,380, and the athletic boosters will donate $11,400 to be put towards a new weight room equipment and flooring. The total cost of this project will be $29,280, with the remaining cost of $2,500 paid by student activity accounts. And it goes without saying, this project was planned prior to the pandemic starting, and so now they're bringing it back so thank you very much to the football backers, the athletic boosters, and our student athletes and their activity accounts for making this happen. As I understand it, when we originally redesigned the weight room, there was a turf area that was conceptually thought to be a benefit. They want to put more racks in there, so this is going to go to update the flooring and put more racks for our kids, so more of our athletes can have more equipment to utilize in the weight room. Moving on, Costco donated 48 cases of water valued at $150 to the Strongsville High School Athletic Department to be used for cross-country and track teams. Try9 Wellness donated 40 cases of hand sanitizer and masks valued at $2,500 to the Strongsville High School Athletic Department. The Strongsville Athletic Boosters made the following donations. A donation of $3,500 to purchase shirts, sweatshirts, patches for recognition. A donation of $1,015 to purchase impact testing program for baseline and concussion testing throughout the year. The donation of a laptop at $600 for use during live streaming sporting events. A donation of $2,000 was made to cover the cost of the portion of the huddle system used by all sports teams. And finally, a donation of $1,175 was made for the purchase of rain gear for girls golf and to supplement uniforms for girls tennis and boys golf.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Bissell. Any discussion? Goes without saying that we thank everybody for all of their contributions to our district. It's things like this that allow us to have a robust and complete program, and we're very grateful.
There are no reports for, oh, I'm sorry.
This
did
one
you-
is a vote.
I appreciate your speed. Mr. Anagnostou?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
George, I'm going to abstain from this vote due to the fact that my husband is the booster president.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The motion carries, and please extend our thanks to Mr. Hausum.
Absolutely. We do not have any items under curriculum or student services this month, so now I'll turn it over to Jenny Pelko, our Assistant Superintendent, for the Human Resource Report.
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. I have the following items for your consideration under Human Resources. Under E1, the appointment of certificated staff, appointments of non-certificated staff members, appointments certificated substitute, appointments for non-certificated substitutes, appointment for a home instruction tutor, appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointment for a certificated supplemental contract paid upon completion. Under E2, a change in status for certificated staff, changes in status for non-certificated staff. Under E3, change in title for non-certificated staff, stipend for auditorium stage crew. Under E5, continuing contract for non-certificated staff. Under E6, medical leaves for certificated staff, medical leave for leadership, medical leaves for non-certificated staff. Under E7, unpaid leave for certificated staff, unpaid leaves for non-certificated staff. And under E8, volunteer chaperone. And I have an addendum as well. Under E1, continuing under that, appointments for certificated staff, appointments for non-certificated staff, appointment for a permanent substitute, appointments for certificated substitutes, appointments for non-certificated substitutes, appointment for certificated athletic supplemental contract, appointment for home instruction tutor, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointment for certificated supplemental contract prorated. Under E2, change in status for non-certificated staff, stipends for our teacher-based team coaches, stipend for our professional development that took place on November 3rd. Under E5, continuing contract for non-certificated staff, and continuing volunteer coaches, resignation of a non-certificated staff, resignation of certificated supplemental, resignations for certificated stipends, and under E10, change in full-time equivalent. And I believe that concludes my report.
And there is no report under technology, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Were there any questions for Dr. Ryba or Mrs. Pelko? Next is report on Polaris Career Center. Michelle?
Polaris doesn't hold a board meeting in November, so there's no updates there. There is just one thing of note is that at this time, Polaris intends to continue going full-time. They don't face the same kinds of challenges that we do as a school district there. But they have asked teachers and staff there to make some changes to continue to keep their program running as smoothly as possible. Some of these changes include don't have students working in groups together for more than 10 minutes at a time, so they keep the contact tracing down. And again, the same kind of things we have here. Face coverings are mandatory. Keeping staff on Zoom meetings if possible, keeping them apart so they're not contact traced if someone gets ill. So at this time, Polaris is moving forward all in person, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Report on legislation. Sherry?
Okay, I just want, George had mentioned earlier the fair funding formula. It hasn't been passed, but Strongsville could see an increase of over $1 million in the event that it was passed. some of the changes or what the fair funding plan is based on, and it's just me reading through some information that George has shared. The base costs, state and local share when they're talking about property, wealth, and income wealth. And then last, the categorical aid, which takes into account the economically disadvantaged districts, special education, gifted education, and can't read my own writing. English language learners. And also there was, Georgia mentioned this also, the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation approved a check for, again, refund of dividends for this district of $904,000. Did we get that yet, George?
So we got the 242,000, 904,000 should be, they said around December.
Okay,
But they gave us our amount, so that's the amount we should be anticipating.
all right. And that concludes my report.
I do want to add on for the fair funding formula,
Okay.
just kind of the status of where it's at right now. So there's been a push late last week, going into this week, from the Ohio Association of School Business Officials, the Ohio School Boards Association, and BASA, which is the Buckeye Administrator Superintendents Association, for testimonies that's going to be given to the various House committees and I think also Senate committees. Because of the distance, the pandemic, everything's going to be done virtual, and rather than having a lot of people go testify, what they're trying to do is regional testimonies. So one person, a superintendent or treasurer from one region is going to give a testimony, and they're asking districts to sign on to it. And they were asking that request by this past Monday. I signed on to the Northeast region testimony in support of it. I'm in support of it for following reasons. One, the current formula is broken. You have over 80% of the schools that's either on a guarantee or on a cap. The other reason, under this formula, we're going to see an increase. So I'm always in support of more money. And three, mainly the guarantees kind of goes away. And right now, under this current formula, close to 50% of our funding is guaranteed. And when we go through the biennium, we're always crossing our fingers to see how much is that guarantee going to go away. So that kind of eliminates that. It's a more transparent way of funding, and it's also the first time where it's been a collaboration between school district leadership with treasurers, superintendents, working with legislators to come up with a fair funding formula that benefits all students in the state. So right now, it's still in the testimony stage. It hasn't gone through the House yet, and the Senate, nor the Senate. So it's kind of in the early stages, but we'll see where it lands. And they're trying, the timeline they pushed out, they're trying to do something through December. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
George, is there somewhere we can watch your testimony?
I'm not sure. They haven't shared.
You will share that with us as soon as you find out. So, and I will compliment you on your advocacy. It's important that we are part of the conversation and that we advocate for what's best in Strongsville. The cynic in me is concerned that to fully fund the plan, it's over $1.5 billion during a pandemic. It'll be interesting to see how that works out.
And for the record, I didn't hear the exact question, but I'm not giving the testimony. I just signed my name to the testimony. No, I just signed in support of it.
Next on our agenda is board liaison reports. Why don't we start with Mrs. Bissell, and we'll work our way down.
Laura has city council this month, so she can go ahead with that.
City Council met this past Monday, and they started on a very positive note with our Lady Mustang soccer team. They were honored at the very beginning of the meeting. Mayor Persiak read a proclamation that stated November 16th of 2020 is Strongsville Lady Mustang Day for our amazing 22 state soccer champs. The girls all came decked out in their medals, wearing masks and socially distancing, of course, and were able to get a quick picture with the mayor and the council members. So again, congratulations to our girls soccer team. Second, they talked, Mr. Short talked about the COVID and Southwest. A couple of things to note is that they now have their own rapid on-site testing. They know the results within an hour or so, so that is helping to get people in and out of the hospitals faster. They continue to have an adequate supply of PPE. With the change in weather, the drive-up testing has been moved to the P1 level of the parking garage below the E building. And to note, the hospital has submitted an application to the Ohio Department of Health to receive the COVID-19 vaccine and be a designated distribution site should and when the vaccine is approved and made available to the public. Next, due to call volume increases, 6 new firefighters are being added starting in January of 2021, 2 per shift. This will put us closer to where we were in 2010 with staffing. And last but not least, this Sunday, we will have the lighting ceremony in the center of town, starting at 5:30, and there will be fireworks. There will be no parade, and Santa won't be able to have the children come up and sit on his lap due to COVID, but they will still have their firework display. And that concludes my report.
Sherry, did you have any other reports?
On the PTA council, just wanted to mention that the Strongsville Food Bank is in need of $10 stocking stuffers from local restaurants for the children in their Sharing Tree program. These need to be received by December 4th. The food bank hours are from 9:30 to 11, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If you would like to make a monetary donation, you can make checks payable to Strongsville Food Bank, and they can be mailed to 13259 Pearl Road, Strongsville, Ohio 44136. And also the food bank is taking donations of boxes of cereals, cans of vegetables, cans of soup, and like I mentioned, monetary donations. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Laura, SEF?
Sorry, back up to Strongsville Education Foundation. They did meet last Thursday morning, and I was able to listen in on that conversation. Dr. Ryba gave an update on SCS Connects, and then they talked about different ways to do more fundraising.
Yeah, and they also, we've been putting out their educator grants that they put out, and so they had one that was approved, and there was a lot of just business bylaws, new officers, and things of those natures as they get geared up for the next calendar year.
And that concludes that report.
Thank you. Seth?
Yeah, so obviously the girls soccer team, extremely proud of them, and Sherry, thank you for your note on that. Also, Julie Isham's 11th place finish at state, so congratulations to Julia for representing Strongsville in that regard, and congratulations to her. And also, last week was Veterans Day, so we want to say thank you to our veterans and for their service, and also thank you to all the schools for the all the parades and just festivities that they put together, the care packages, a lot of videos and so forth. So it was like almost like a reverse parade, I understand, that happened at a couple of the schools. So we're thankful for that and appreciate the buildings pitching in and being a part of that. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Board committee reports? Sherry or Seth, there was not a finance committee, correct?
There was not.
And
We're working on a date.
Next meeting is to be announced. Policy committee, we do have our next meeting December 2nd, 6:30 PM here in the administrative offices. Facilities committee, the last meeting was postponed because of COVID, and our next meeting is to be announced. And the same with the Business Advisory Council Committee, the next meeting is to be announced. We now come to our consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point means all items with an asterisk are adopted in one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any requests? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? We do have the addendums for the superintendent's report, and those were all listed. Any other conversation? Hearing none. George?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Superintendent, timely information.
Just a reminder that our online Spirit gear shop is up and running. So if you're, just check out the Mustang Moments that we send out every Friday. That'll have the link there and the dates as to when it's open. So if you're looking for some nice gifts for the holidays or just to add to your Strongsville Mustangs ensemble, take a look and see if there's anything that works for you. And that's it.
Thank you. Board of Education other, do we have any others? The only other I'm going to share is that tomorrow, we do have a car to raffle off. And so far, we have raised over $41,000 through the car raffle ticket sale, which, considering the time and the pandemic and everything else, I think is just outstanding and is a testament to the support of the community regardless of what's going on in the world at large. So I thank everyone for that. It is not too late to get a ticket, so if anyone needs a car, the tickets are right here, or find a student athlete before 6 p.m. tomorrow. And that concludes my Board of Education others. Meeting notification, our next regular Board of Education meeting is December 10th at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. We also have our retreat on the 16th. Is that at 7 p.m. or did we?
6:30.
6:30, also here in the Administration Building. Do we have any more need for executive session
Yes.
on the topics of?
Consider the employment of a public employee, to prepare for negotiations with public employees concerning compensation or other terms, and to consider matters required, consider matters required to be kept confidential. No.
Confer.
Thank you. To
Pending
confer with an
meeting.
attorney for the Board of Education concerning disputes and subject of pending or imminent court action. I apologize, George. You coached me up well and I failed you.
So we do have need for executive session on those topics. I will not repeat them. That's what we have the record for. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, the motion carries. We will go into executive session at 10:15. We have no expectation of further business otherwise. I do want to take a moment to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the elementary schools for all the work they've been doing. I want to say thank you to the middle schools for all the work they've been doing. And I want to say thank you to the high school for all the work they've been doing. That's the staff, that's the custodians, the bus drivers, the aides, that's the students, that's the parents. It is Thanksgiving. We do, regardless of the pandemic, we do have much to be thankful for, and that's each other, our family and friends. So I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December. Thank you.